Hello, welcome. My name is Kristen Borth, and I've got with me.
I am Lorie Mills, and we are doing the Primo Perspective. Welcome, you guys.
So excited about our first episode, Lorie.
I am too, Kristen. I have been just dreaming about this for the last 2 years, and now it's finally here. I am so excited about it.
I know. I think back to when we first started talking about you joining Primo and how I was telling you kind of my pipe dreams, and you were all on board, and it was all exciting. And so we're here. We're finally here. It's
Yeah,
so
we're
great.
here. Yes, it is. It is fantastic. And I know people are probably wondering, okay, so what are you guys about? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah.
So just kind of give you a little background. I've been in HIM for 32 years. And Kristen, how long have you been in HIM?
15, officially 15.
Wow. Wow. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of just where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going as HIM professionals. We're going to talk about different subjects every week, and we're looking forward to just sharing our perspective on what's going on in our industry and in healthcare in general. There's so many hot topics going on right now. So, Kristen, I'll let you lead off with kind of how you feel about the HIM industry, getting
Yeah.
in, your history of it. So, what's going on with you?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this just over the last couple of days because we kicked off school. So for people that don't know me very well, I not only work at Primo Consulting Group, but I also teach as well. And so it's been the kickoff of school, so the first week of school is always exciting, but also everybody trying to get things going. And I have been thinking about education for HIMers just in general.
Hmm.
I definitely have used my HIM education more than my master's in informatics, but
Wow.
yeah, I know. A little bit shocking. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
guessed that, but it's always my HIM education that draws people back when, I'm working on projects or I'm being involved in something.
Right.
And so I was thinking about it and I was like, well, what would be my favorite HIM era? Funny enough, my favorite HIM era is probably one that I have glorified because I've heard so many stories of it. Now, Lorie, you've been in the industry a little bit longer than me, so you probably could give me a reality check on this glorified HIM era. But every time I'm talking to somebody who is from this era, they keep telling me, oh, late 90s, early 2000s were just
Hmm.
amazing.
It was
And
great.
I look at it now and then I kind of wonder if maybe we're mindset a little bit stuck in that time frame where
Hmm.
it's like, oh, yes, it was amazing. It's amazing. But we're having this huge, from my students' perspective, from my industry partners' perspective, from consulting perspective, we're having this huge flex into non-traditional roles.
Hmm.
So I want to know what your favorite HIM
Yes.
era is.
So I started in HIM in the mid 90s,
Okay.
and it was great. So we were talking to some students the other day about this. So you go into your HIM department and there's just shelves and shelves and shelves full of paper records. You had to learn terminal digit filing. You would get in the file room, and the shelving had cranks on them. So you would be in a file filing records, and somebody wouldn't know you were there. They would come in and they'd start cranking the shelves and roll you up in the shelves. And you're like, it was a very dangerous time to be in HIM. It's probably one of the most dangerous times. And you would be yelling, "Oh, I'm in here, stop!" That was great. And then, so one of my very first jobs was working in what we call the physician incomplete area. And during paper record time, you had a wall that had each doctor, they had their little slot, and their records were in there. And they would come in and you would pull their records for them and take them and put them in what we call the dictation booth and let them complete their records. It was very interesting, a lot of interaction. So you got to know your medical staff really, really well. And I think that's where I first developed my love of working with medical staff. Uh, Back in the day, and I was telling students this, I've had charts thrown at me. I've been talked very ugly to.
No.
Uh, had some very crude things said because things were just very, very different back then, and the human interaction was very different than it is now. And I think I kind of miss that. I miss being able to go up to a physician and talk to them and having to always, send a secure chat or text message or just
Yeah.
an electronic form of communication. So that has made it different, and I do miss that.
So much more personal, then
Hmm.
versus the encrypted messages and the secured texts and all of those things. They
Right.
don't know who you are. They see a name and that's it. They
Right.
don't get that personal. I mean, you've told me stories about making them food and bribing them with food in
Yep.
some cases.
No, no,
Like,
no, 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 not bribe. No, you cannot
oh,
use the word bribe in healthcare,
there we
Kristen.
go.
It's
Okay,
positive incentive.
there we go. It's just, it's such a different world. And there's a part of me that kind of misses that world.
Yeah.
I came into HIM in 2010, 2012. It wasn't quite like it is today because I still was working with providers. I was still,
Hmm.
close with them. There were several facilities because I started off in consulting that were still on paper charts. So
Hmm.
I got that flex of experiencing the paper charts, but then quickly moving into the electronic records that we're in now. It's fascinating because I kind of think that's my generation anyways, because that's what I keep
Yeah.
hearing, as a millennial, which can have good or bad context to it. Um uh I remember a time before cell phones. I remember a time before the internet, all of that stuff. But then I also grew up with it in a lot of ways. And so it's very, very reflective of my career.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. I can remember I've got tons of stories about different things that happened, but one of the funniest stories I ever heard, we were starting to transition into electronic records, and physicians were starting to do electronic signature. And we had a general surgeon who was in his mid 70s, and he was very hardcore. He did 2 tours in Vietnam as a medic, and I mean, so he was hardcore. But my office was next to the IT department, and I heard him one day go in, and he had a computer in a box, a laptop in a box, and he told the IT director, he said, I need you to show me how to turn this on. And
Oh,
you think back how far we've come. You know, this was 20 years ago. We had a physician that had never even turned a computer on, and we were asking him to go in and do electronic signature on records. And so it was he started doing it. He did do it eventually, but it took a lot of coaxing and help and education to get him there. But I think back now, people in HIM would have no concept of that they've never turned a computer on or they've never
right.
touched a computer. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that because even myself, I forget it, and my children forget it about me. They're like, "Mama, you can do that," and it's like, "No, I can't. I really can't do that. I don't know how."
Yeah.
Um, we just have to remember that, and I think HIMers are good in being able to bridge those gaps to help bring those people along. Even if it's kicking and screaming that you're bringing them
Yeah.
along, you can still bring them along and help them do what we need to do when we transition into this more electronic world that we're in.
Oh, yeah. The change management aspect of what HIM has gone through in just the last, I mean, I'm going to say 20 years,
Right.
um, has been huge. Has been huge.
Hmm.
And I think oftentimes, now this is me being sensitive. We might get some flack for this, but this is me being sensitive to our clinicians because they're very, very, very well equipped to do what they do with their patients, right? They're educated, they've got it. But then we start adding in this other layer of like, oh no, now you got to do it on a computer. Now you need to do it with dictation. Now you need to do it with a scribe. And it's not the functions of their job that stress them out, it's those change
It
functions
is.
that stress them out. And HIM was catching up at the same time. But I feel like sometimes we were a little insensitive to the clinicians as we're like, you're going to do this no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And through my career, I've always very been pro provider. And I've always told my providers, I will cut backflips to help you and to protect you as long as you're doing what's right. And when I say protect, I mean make sure that they're, following the rules and trying to function and take care of their patients. I will do everything to help them do that. But you got to follow the rules and you got to do what we're supposed to. And I know it's hard. It is very hard for providers, especially older providers. The new ones coming out now, they've grown up in the tech world, so it's not as big of a deal to them to use tech. Actually, a lot of them, your generation, you prefer tech to face. And I try to remember that. I used to always, when I was dealing with a provider, I would gauge what was that provider's personality into how I
Mhm.
approach them. I had one provider that he really liked pretty girls. And back in my younger days, I would make sure that I looked really pretty when I went to go talk to him. I had another provider who did not like excess, did not like waste. He was from South Africa, great physician. And if I went to talk to him, I made sure I wore scrubs and a ponytail and I didn't wear red lipstick and no gaudy jewelry because he was just much more receptive
Yeah.
if I did that. So it's funny, yeah, how we have transitioned, and now these new guys, they don't want us in their face. They don't want us talking one on one. They want to do electronic communications. It's a big
Yeah.
change, and it's been a change for me. It's been a huge change to figure out. Okay, how do I work in this new world where they don't want you to talk to them?
Yeah. Well, and when you think about, sorry, I have something in my throat. When you think about, when Debbie started, and Debbie Primo and I have talked extensively about her experiences. Some of
Mm-hmm.
the stories she's told me, and I will totally botch them, I'm sure, but some of the stories she's told me where the CEO or CFO came down and was really mad because she wasn't doing something that he wanted her to do, literally choked her in her office, was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I said, Debbie, you are the shoulders that Lorie and I get to stand
Yeah.
on. And you've pushed through and you've made HIM this truly epic profession in
Mm-hmm.
some ways. I
Yeah.
don't know, and I was wondering this, and I would love your opinion. I don't know of any healthcare profession where you go to school and you have the ability to carve out your unique professional experience. Clinicians, they go to school, okay, I'm a doctor and I'm a family practice doctor, and that's what they do. And it's unique day to day. But I mean, I came out and I know how to code, but ask me how many times I've coded.
Right.
And that was part of my education. I knew how to be an HIM director. I think I've only been an HIM director, supervisor, manager for a couple times in my consulting experience. Like, I never had that as my foundational
Right.
skill. And it's just so fascinating to me how we can carve out and design our own profession with this one education. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts
it's
on that?
great. So it's great. I agree 100%. I mean, even in my own career, I like to pick and tell people, I did start out as a file clerk right out of school, out of college, and was making like $4.96 an hour. Now, granted, this was 32 years ago. I didn't stay in that position very long because I did have an HIM credential, and so I moved up relatively like within 2 months. I was, an HIM tech at that point. Um, and it's been great. And I'm going to tell you something that's really funny. I hated coding in school,
What?
despised it. I
No way.
almost failed the class. I mean, it was so, I just could not get it. And now I love it. I just absolutely love it. And, like you're talking about the different things we've done in our careers, I've done almost everything in revenue cycle, almost everything. Now, operations I run from. I don't like operations, but rev cycle I love, and I've done all of that. But that is one thing that's really interesting about HIM is, yeah, you get that base education, and there's so many things you can do with it, and that's what I try to tell students now. And I try to talk to high school students and tell them, this is a career that no matter what, you will find a place for it when you get out. And there's so many things going on. It's been a great career to be in. And you're right about Debbie Primo being someone that we've, stood on her shoulders. There's lots of people out there. I think about
Right.
Rita Bowen and Debbie, and gosh, there's so many people that I just look up to. I used to tell Rita all the time, I want to be you when I grow up. I'm trying really hard.
Yeah, there's so many what I call oh man. Now I just forgot what I was going to say, but like noble HIM people
Yeah.
that I look up to, like these legendary HIM individuals. I'm like, tell me your story. And so that's why I love what Hipcast is doing, because I get to see individual HIM professionals experience and get to follow what their path is. And it's always extremely opposite of mine. And,
Right.
my professors kept telling me, well, you'll want to get out and get some experience, and then you can get into consulting. And Debbie Primo took a chance on me, and I loved it. It was fantastic. And it's a unique experience. So I do think there are so many stories out there that are unique and different. And I
Yep.
think even more so now, we've got a great accelerating, path to kind of jump into that.
Yeah.
As Roberta Miranda said, your crowning jewel, your credential, your crowning jewel, your crown that you have, uh, only allows you to go further.
Yes, it
I don't know.
does.
I'm very excited about our
It really
profession.
does. Well, I think about, so back in the day, even before I got into HIM, we were called the librarians. And most of the HIM people, they had that demeanor about them, the librarian demeanor. And I've seen that change so much, because when I first got into HIM, I was not the rule. I didn't fit inside the little square box that most HIM people fit into. So it was kind of different. I always kind of really stuck out because I didn't follow that pattern. But now there are so many different personality types in HIM, and it takes those personality types to push things forward. I've seen there's a young lady that I helped when I was at Forest as a director, and we moved her into quality, and she was a scanner. She had an RHIA, but she would come in as a entry level position as a scanner, and then we eventually moved her over to the quality side. And the things that she is doing now, and her name is Casey Clayton. She's
Oh yes,
fantastic,
Casey.
fantastic. And I'm just amazed, going, oh my gosh, look at you, you've come such a long way.
Hmm.
And she's going to do great things, and she's really building a name for herself in the quality world.
It's amazing.
Quality used to belong to HIM, and it
Hmm.
was slowly transitioned out into nursing. And I think there's opportunity for us to take that back. We've just got to, or I say take it back, to get back in that piece of HIM. And yeah, there's so many different things that we can all do. So what do you see? Because I know, Kristen, you're really big into AI and the things
Yes.
we're going to be able to do with AI. And AI is such a hot topic right now.
It
So
is.
where do you see that fitting into providers' lives, into
Mhm.
HIM? How is that going to transition our roles that we're doing now?
I think it's going to open up a lot more opportunities. I think we already have a lot of opportunities, which is a pro and a con in a lot of ways, because you kind of have to be proactive to find where you
Right.
want to go and what you want to do. It's not like you come out and you have one direct path. There's, that struggle there, but I think at the same time, it gives us such a unique opportunity to expand even more
Mhm.
and to push our skill set out even more and to show the power of our knowledge and our diverse knowledge that we have. I was telling somebody about AI and they were like, "How do you know about AI?" And I was like, "Well, aside from me being a human, also I work, in HIM. I work with hospitals and they're integrating it. I'm a curious person, so I'm curious what it does. I constantly am uh, playing around with how to prompt them, but they don't see it as something that falls into our realm. And I
Mm-mm.
think we're going to need to really step up as an industry and say, okay, yes, this is something. And I see so many people in our industry already stepping up and saying, "Oh, we're going to do presentations on prompting. We're going to do
Mhm.
presentations on Chat GPT or Copilot or all of them, and let's talk about what it's doing." I see many people working to just get it integrated.
Yeah.
But what we're not seeing as much of is us using that critical side of ourselves that we know to think about the hiccups that we might have, to
Mhm.
think about the struggles that we might have, to think about the regulation or compliance or
Yep.
governance that we need to do. We definitely have to move from static regulation like we've done in HIM for
Mhm.
decades. I
Yep.
mean, how many times have you walked into an HIM department? You're like, "Okay, where are your policies and procedures?" And it's either, "My policies and procedures are in this binder. It's so dusty. Here you go." Or, "Oh, they're on my desktop somewhere. Okay, I can't find them. They must not be in my
Mm.
desktop. There's a folder somewhere. Let me find them."
Yep.
And they don't look at them continually. Well, AI is going to have to change that because the regulations are changing, the way that we do things are changing, and
Yeah.
so we've got to have a good handle on that, and there's
No.
nobody better at getting a good handle on that than an HIM person, I don't think.
100%. And I have to tell you a funny story that you brought that up. It's funny. So I was on site at one of my clients the other day, a little while back, and one of their ER providers came in and he was talking about this AI tool that he's using to do his notes. And he was so excited about it and just over the moon, just talking how great it's made things and it's so much better. And I looked at him and I said, "I'm so happy for you. But where's the policy that tells me that you can use that AI tool, and how is it being governed uh, in the ED department?" And his face he kind of looked at me kind of funny and his eyes got big. And the HIM director was in there with me and she kind of sniggered. And he said, "She'll know." And I started laughing because we have actually worked with that client to write some AI policies using the AI governance tool that we have, and it was just so funny because his eyes got so big and he didn't know what to say. And
Mhm.
I said, "You need to know that because DNV may ask you that one day. You better learn." But it was just so funny that he did that. I was so excited though that I knew they had the policies in
Yeah.
place already. He just didn't know it. So it was really
Yeah.
kind of I like giving my providers a hard time, but it was funny.
Yeah. Well, and you bring that up, and I do think they do get excited because I do think it does actually, when good training, comes into play and they know exactly how to use the tool. I do think it will make things a bit more streamlined. It will make
Hmm.
things a little bit easier. Their pajama time is going to be cut. But I also think we have a huge need, and we've talked about this before, Lorie, but a huge need for AI prompting education for our providers,
Oh,
because
100%.
how many times have you put something in, and I tend to use Chat GPT, but I've used Copilot, I've used Gemini. How many times have you put something in there and you're like, "Hold up, no, that wasn't what I wanted. That was junk. That was crap." do this. And then you have to modify what your prompt is to make sure that you actually getting something. And then even still, you're pulling out the product that it's giving you and you're like, oh man, now I got to, remodify this because this sounded terrible and you couldn't get it to work. So I think provider prompting education is going to become something that HIMers across the board could tackle
Yes.
and be phenomenal at supporting our providers in being effective.
Right. And I agree 100%. And it's so funny that you're talking about this prompting uh knowledge. So, okay, I'm one of these. I don't use AI very often. I have used it a couple of times, not very skilled at it. So, for Christmas, your Christmas gift, the little card that was in your Christmas gift, I used AI to make that. I mean, because I was like, it was just so funny. I was like, oh my gosh. And it took me 2 or 3 times to get it to where I liked it, but it was great. But I saw a commercial on social media this week that said, an AI can build a website
Mm-hmm.
within a matter of just seconds, really.
Mm-hmm.
And still, most of the people are using it to create an email.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of the
Yeah.
thing that we're just not even scratching the surface of what AI is going to be able to do. And I think in our world, because that's been a big conversation with coding,
Yeah.
how is AI going to affect coding? And I foresee it as it's going to be a great tool for us, but we're going to have to function more as an auditor than an actual coder. I feel like
Yeah.
eventually AI is going to be doing the coding, but I think that the human aspect of it, we're still going to have to function as an auditor and make sure, because like you said, sometimes you get junk out. So you've got to make sure that human touch is looking at it before it goes out the door. Uh, I found, and this is funny because when physicians use Dragon or whatever they're using
Yeah.
to do a note, their accents can be a challenge. And is AI going to know that the note that said my patient went through McDonald's and had an oil change is really not what it was supposed to say? Because I've seen that.
Yep.
And I think about, okay, so we've still got to make sure that it's all being done appropriately.
Yes.
I think in HIM sometimes we're moving so fast in technology, we forget about our foundational needs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the components of a medical record are still the components of a medical record that they were 30 years ago. We're just creating them differently, but we still have to make sure that those components are there. And I think a lot of times when HIM is not involved in the EMR build like they should be,
Yeah.
HIM people should be building EMRs. Okay, they should be the one making sure that information is correct. I think when we're left out of that, then we run into problems. We forget the foundations of this has got to be in there. This is considered a legal
Mm-hmm.
medical record, and sometimes that gets left out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, with I I had someone ask me, why wouldn't I just put in to, AI and have it give me all the regulations or have it give me all of the requirements? And it was for
Hmm.
various things, not just for AI in itself, but as they're asking me this, I was like, well, because it's not always going to be accurate. Like, how many times have you put something in there and it's missing? So you've got to have that foundational
Hmm.
knowledge. And
Yep.
that's where I still think going back to our roots of what we're learning. And that's why I'm very thankful in a lot of ways that KHIM hasn't changed so many of their requirements that it takes out some of that foundational
Right.
stuff. I mean, I'm still teaching my students about terminal digit. We don't do it, they don't learn how to do it, but they're still learning about the idea of it.
Hmm.
And I think that's really valuable and important because if we forget all of those things and say, "Oh, the new sexy thing is here, AI,"
Yeah.
we're going to forget that AI doesn't know everything. It knows what it's trained to know and it's
Hmm.
increasing daily. So
Right.
I'm not trying to ignore that, but we've got to know those foundations to make sure that we are still vitally important
Hmm.
the hospital or the provider office or our clinicians just in general need us to be. We
Mhm.
still have that basic knowledge to push everything through,
Mhm.
make sure
Well,
everything is stable.
yeah, 100%. And think about these hospitals who have been held for ransom, that they've had to shut down their EMR system and go back to paper. Um, people my age, yeah, we can do that because we know what we need to do. We know what has to happen in order for something to exist on paper. Uh, you know, but we've seen that a lot of people, they don't know. The
Mhm.
new clinicians, the newer age, they don't know what to do. They've never had to write a progress note on paper. Nurses have never had to, manually get lab results and put them on a chart and things like that. And a lot of HIM people have never had to do any of that. So I think
Mhm.
that's one reason it is important to know the foundations. You do need to know terminal digit. What if a hurricane or something comes through and wipes out
Mhm.
your everything? And I know people are thinking, what, really? Yes,
Yeah.
Katrina was only 20 years ago. We remember
Yeah.
being without any power and water and I've seen hospitals that were destroyed by a tornado. There was a hospital
Yes.
here in Mississippi, and this
Mhm.
this is hilarious. And I learned this at a meeting. The HIM director that was at that hospital at the time told this, that had told CMS they had been hit by a tornado, they had a disaster, they could not submit claims. CMS wanted proof. So they took a picture of the HIM director standing on a ladder getting records and micro and x-ray films out of a tree and
Wow.
sent that to CMS as proof of that they could not transmit claims.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, natural disasters, but then also patients are smart. Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
can Google things. We like to say that health literacy is low, and don't get me wrong, I do think that we need to increase health literacy to help our patients. Patients are smart. So then they're bringing about lawsuits. I mean, HI professionals are well versed in how
Mhm.
to protect our hospitals and our clinicians with different documentation support and backing things up. And I mean, we we have to know that foundational knowledge to be
Mhm.
able to do that. I've seen already this year, you know, lawsuits that are because an AI scribe was used and the patient didn't feel like they were informed enough.
Mhm.
So now they're bringing about a lawsuit. That's a huge problem. And if you leave the HIM person out of it or an HIM expert out of it, you could potentially fall into those
Yep.
pits where it's like, oh, well, we didn't know. I didn't know I needed to tell her. We just
Mhm.
used ambient listening in general to scribe
Yep.
everything for us. Well, we have to include that in certain areas to make sure the patient's informed.
I just sent that article because I know what you're talking about. I just
Mhm.
saw it this week. I sent it to the HIM director, the QIO, and the COO of a hospital that's a client of mine. And I'm like, see this? And it started a flurry of conversation. And one of the providers said, well, isn't it in the consent? I said, nobody reads that consent.
No.
We talked about that, and that was part of the conversation. And so they talked about, okay, so we need to post that we're using AI, and then the provider really needs to tell the patient,
Mhm.
this is what I'm doing before they do it, and give that patient the option.
Yeah.
I know at time, I think it's just because it's so new right now,
Mhm.
that it's just one of those things. People are just scared. People are
Yeah.
scared of AI. They really are. They're
Mhm.
fearful of it.
Yeah.
So it's going to take us a few years to, I think, get it all where it's okay, to where we just know, okay, he's using AI to do my note and it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a little time, but we've got to
Yeah.
get there. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what happened with, the EHR system too. It was like, "Oh, well, what are you doing?" The doctor or the clinician's now looking at the screen. They're not looking at me because 'cause they're taking notes. So I think just looping back as we slowly wrap this up, but just looping back to, you know, where we started as medical record librarians,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, going forward and seeing the big changes and the big moves that we've made. We we it's an exciting time to be an
It
HIM
is.
professional.
It's so exciting. And I got one little quick story I'll tell you that, and
Yeah.
it's cool. So I was visiting between Natchez and Vicksburg. There is a plantation home there that was built by a physician, and so they have it open for tours. We stopped, and they had microfiche of his medical records that he had back in the 1840s, and
Wow.
it basically had the name, it had the name of the procedure that was done and how much it cost. And that's all that was in the medical record. And just FYI, an IND was $5 back in the 1840s.
Dollars.
$5.
Wow. It was expensive back then too.
So I know. So I know. I look at, okay, so here we've gone from a name, the type of procedure, and an amount that we charge them, to look what we have now in our EMRs, all of
Yeah.
the information that is available at our fingertips. So I just look at that as this huge transition of information, and how great and what a part HIM has played into that. And I know we're running short on time. It's been great. I've loved our
Yes.
conversation.
Me too.
I'm excited about this new show, the Primo Perspective, that you and I are going to be doing.
Yeah.
Hey, if any of our listeners have suggestions that you want us to talk about and comment on, or if you want to send us any, quotes or something you'd like us to say, we'll get some contact info out there for you guys, and you
Yeah.
can send us that, and we'll be happy to talk about it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, until the next one, Lori.
All right, Kristen. Till the next time. See ya.
See ya.